Hi, everybody. It's Dr. Holly MacKenna from Dara Wellness. I'm here for the Big Easiest Ways to Wellness. And today I have a very special guest who I adore and have known for a long time. Dr. Allison Daly is a doctor of physical therapy. And I thought of her because, like many of you, I've been teleworking since March and my back is killing me. So I reached out to Allison because I didn't know what to do with myself, even though, I'm supposed to know all the things. I don't know all the things. I'm just really good at faking it. So she's like full of knowledge, and I thought would be helpful to all of us because I know I'm not the only one who's teleworking and thinking that they're doing the right things, but not necessarily honoring their body in a way that's helpful. So Dr. Daly, do you mind telling us a little bit about yourself? I mean, I know you, but just so everyone else knows, like what's your deal?
Sure. Thank you for having me on. First of all, this is really fun to get to have a chat with you and collaborate on teaching people some new things. So, I am a doctor of physical therapy, and I have a private practice here in New Orleans called Optimal Kinetics. I've had my practice for 11 years now, and what I do is specialize more so in treating. It's more of like a holistic assessment piece, and then it's integrative treatment for any sort of musculoskeletal or neuromuscular conditions. So really the whole gamut of any type of pain or movement dysfunctions. But the way that I work is I work one-on-one with people, and I try to kind of describe it as, a neurological approach to an orthopedic condition, basically. So I specialize a little bit more so in working with people who have very small, basic type of tensions or strains or things that we can work on when they're not a big deal, so that we can prevent it from becoming a big deal and needing any sort of major intervention. Like surgery. We want to try to avoid that as much as possible, and we can. So that's basically what I do in my practice, and I'm looking forward to talking a little bit more with you about a very common complaint that I'm getting lately, which is, why does my back hurt so much?
I mean, I'm telling you, it's killing me. So I thought I was doing the right thing, right? And I think I was doing the right thing just with my limited knowledge base. So I got a standing desk because that's what people who I've worked with have done when they've had back problems. I'm like, what do people do? They look up, and so I kind of did your basic Google search. I went a little further in that I knew folks who do telemedicine as part of their career path, and I've done so for a number of years. So maybe, I started looking within social media at like what they're using and products that they recommend. And so I got myself one of those, I think it's the Very Desk. It's got a couple, I'm standing at it right now, that's why I'm looking down. It does allow you to kind of move it up and down if you want to get really fancy. I'm a little more on the lazy side, so I just kind of leave it standing. But then I noticed the other day, I had a couple of folks, I was seeing folks back to back, and my back was killing me at the end of the day. I'm like, what? I'm in a standing desk. What am I doing wrong? Help me. Dr. Daly, you're my only hope. What can we do?
So yes, this is super common. I'm hearing this all of the time. And I think it would be, a nice thing for us to start with some of these, like the misinformation and some of the myths and kind of things that we tend to just think of as fact, but that we may be thinking of a little bit poorly. So for example, let's just talk about posture. And what comes to mind, let's just think about a few things that come to mind when I say the word posture. Everyone does this.
I know. I immediately started, because I know you from my Pilates background, I immediately held my core in. I'm like, oh, well, maybe if I did that.
Yes, and so there are some very immediate, reflexive things that we do when we think of the word posture. And one thing that I want to mention is that there's a lot of mood words and actually self-talk that we have surrounding posture. And some of those things are, like, oh, my mom or my grandma always told me to like put my shoulders back and sit up straight. And, what's interesting about that is like, yes, in a way that is helping from like having more of this positioning. Right. It is moving you into a better position for your body, but unfortunately, no one teaches us how to move your body into that position so it doesn't create more tension.
Right.
So here, like, yeah, I am creating, the way that gravity just pushes on our body. We have to use our musculature or use just the structure of our body mechanics to be able to support our body against gravity, right? And so it's unrealistic for us to say, sit up straight and pull the shoulders back all of the time. Like that's not realistic. You're not going to do that.
I'm hearing my old ballet teacher like in my ear as you say that. It's like my 12-year-old self is like, and it's tension, and like when I do that, it's like you said, I feel tension somewhere else then because, I'm just like doing this.
Exactly. So it starts to just defeat the purpose. And that's one of the things that I like to try to explore with people is, there are ways that we can position our body to be able to not have the upright posture so, that's so effortful. Mm-hmm. So the reason why we start to accumulate, pain or tension in the body is because we sit in a static posture for a long time. So if you think about, I like to think of posture more as just like a little like snapshot in time of what your body looks like right now. Okay. And it's never really looking exactly the same. And, yes, there's an idea of what this ideal postural alignment looks like. And yes, we can work on, actively moving into some of these more spacious and creating like length and space in our body. But we can't do that all of the time. So mm-hmm. I like to talk about two pieces of, posture, which are active and passive. So you're going to have both pieces of things. And we can also talk about, there is this kind of continuum of static versus like dynamic. Okay. And so what I mean by that is, we are sitting in the same place or standing in the same position for a long period of time. We would consider that like static. So you're not really like moving. But you actually are. There's no way for us to actually stand or sit still for any period of time. We have what's called postural sway. So okay. Our body is constantly trying to differentiate or kind of, play around with different muscles helping to hold us like upright in space. So if you're in the same exact position, the same muscles have to do it the whole time. But if you have some slight bit of sway or you have some change in how you are positioned, then you have different muscles that are helping you out throughout the day. So the more that we can kind of diversify or, the more that we can allow for multiple muscle sets to help support our body, the better. So we're less likely to accumulate tension if we vary our movement patterns. Does that make a little bit of sense?
So how do we do that then? Because that makes sense intellectually, but then I find myself, like I said, I got my standing desk and now I'm going to stand. And, in theory, like you said, I'm moving some when I stand, but I still end up with my back hurting. So I'm wondering, what am I doing wrong?
Right. And so just like we would do a, static sitting all day. So mm-hmm. Sitting is, we're talking about sitting being like the new cardiovascular issues. Sitting is, so there's a lot of like negativity around sitting. And so what's the opposite? Standing. And so now I'm going to get my standing desk and I'm going to stand all day. Well, that's also, standing all day is also problematic. So being able to have some changes in our positioning, and whether that's, part of the day standing and varying, and then sitting and standing and sitting, having both pieces of things allows for there to be less opportunity for tension patterns to accumulate. So ideally, we could have an environment that supports our body, and that we don't have to use as much muscular effort to hold our bodies up in space. And that's literally what the term ergonomics is about. It's the science or the study of people's efficiency in their working environment. So all you are trying to do there is create efficiency and create ease, and the environment can support you. So now we've kind of like had this idea of what is like posture, what is ergonomics, and so intellectually, I think we kind of get a little bit of an understanding of some of those things. But one thing that I want to make sure that people, avoid with ergonomics is there's a lot of stuff. Like there's a lot of stuff to buy. You need this.
Amazon, right? I mean, I'm all about it. 1 in the morning, I'm getting all my ergonomic stuff. I don't know what it does, but it sounds amazing.
So yeah, you need this or you need that, and buy this and buy that, and yes, there are things and products that can help support our environment, but if you don't know the small things to how to position your body, how to set up the chair or the desk or where the computer should be, then all of that stuff is not doing you any good. It's not actually helping you because you've not been able to place your body in a position where it allows you to be supported. So I think something that we, could be able to do is can experience some of these little small things that you can do in your body, and think about how you can set up your desk station. How does that sound? You want to try?
That sounds perfect. Yeah, because I know folks are, especially right now with the pandemic happening, there's so much uncertainty. I know folks, some are going back to work, maybe going back to school, what have you, but finances are still in a place that may not be great, or if it's improved, there's a lot of uncertainty about where it's going. So yeah, I think folks would really appreciate ideas of how they can better support their bodies with maybe what they already have around the house.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to move my computer to a little bit different spot, so you'll be able to see me in just like a really basic chair. It's our standard, a standard chair that has no adjustments, no things. And I'll show you a few ways that don't really cost anything to be able to reposition your body and have your environment support you. So if anyone watching wants to try this along with us, and I'd love for you to do this too with us, Holly, we can. It's much easier for us to feel and experience these concepts in our body as opposed to us just talking about them intellectually. So it's good to have. Yeah, it's good to have the information and understand it for sure, but it also feels, it's always better for you to sense and feel. And anytime we can create a positive movement experience, so something that feels good in your body, your brain's going to be like, yes, I like that, and yes, let's do it again, right?
Yep, it's back to that neuroplasticity that we talked about before. Yeah, forming those new connections in your brain. And I love that we can use things around us to help do that. I'm excited.
Absolutely. Okay, so I'm going to just do, so I think I'm going to turn my camera off, reset my computer and while we're doing that, let's have, if anyone wants to do this with us at home, feel free to grab just a regular standard chair and grab a towel from your bathroom. Okay. Ooh. So those two little easy things. And then we'll kind of play around with just those simple things, and we'll go from there. If anyone that's watching has, any questions while we're kind of resetting, feel free to put them in the comments section. And after we kind of go through this little movement experience, then I'd be happy to answer any questions that people have.
Okay, I have a watch party happening at the same time as this live. So I'm just gonna look and make sure there's not questions there, because I'm not sure they pop up where I can see them. Let me see. So while we're doing this readjustment, just to remind folks about, I mentioned the term neuroplasticity. So what that is how our brains are able to grow. So it's pretty cool. Back when I was in medical school, 20 years ago, we thought that the brain only grew until maybe your teens. And then since then we said, well, no, it's till you're age 25. And especially in psychiatry, that's something that we refer to, because we're worried about what we're doing to growing brains when we see folks who are younger. But you know what? We've come to realize that a lot of what we do in things like integrative psychiatry, psychology, social work, the licensed therapists and physical therapists, all these integrative practitioners, is help your brain form new connections. So neuroplasticity is your brain's ability to make new connections, and that's how we learn. Like, that's what's happening when you're doing your physical therapy experience, or seeing someone for talk therapy, or just changing how you view the world, maybe through mindfulness or Tai Chi, or the things we talked about last week. So neuroplasticity, super cool. I find it incredibly empowering, which is why it's my jam, because it puts the power back in your hands. Yes, you could see someone like Dr. Daly or myself, or a number of folks that I'll have on this show, who can be partners with you on this journey, but the power still lies within you and within your brain. And that's what neuroplasticity is about, is that you can change how your brain views things, make new connections, make new patterns, and make a new pathway for yourself within the world. Super cool. So are you ready?
It is super cool, and I would love to piggyback on what you just were talking about here. And we always hear, we hear a lot more recently about mindful movement and the mind-body connection. And I wanted to just take a minute to explain that from the perspective of kinesiology, like what that actually means. So, I like to use the example of a chandelier in your dining room, okay? So with a chandelier, if we wanted to brighten up the room, we have two options here. We could say, all right, I'm gonna screw in like 1 or 2 light bulbs into this big chandelier and like really turn up the juice, like turn up that electricity, turn up that dimmer switch. Or you could have, a little amount of electricity and a lot of light bulbs, right? And so those two things, those two paths to brightening the room produce the same result, but it's a different way of getting there, right? And so as far as kinesiology and movement is concerned, we have the opportunity to use either, you can train muscle in strength, endurance, coordination, flexibility, or power. So these kind of like 5 ways. So we know what strength is. Strength is overloading the muscle and how much weight you can lift. And that creates muscle hypertrophy. So like the actual like muscle belly, the actual cells get larger. So bringing it back to that chandelier concept, that would be screwing in more light bulbs. So you physically have more bulbs, or you physically have more or larger fibers, as opposed to creating a better neuromuscular connection, which is using our sensation, using our sensory system to let the brain know where we are in space. And then the brain gets to create some type of movement pattern. So it's sensory motor training. So it involves the nervous system and how we feel. that is more of that's more synonymous with turning up the dimmer switch. It's increasing the electricity. It's what you just described in neuroplasticity, which is creating better or strong or effective motor pathways. So that's what all mindful movement and mind-body exercise is all about. So things like Pilates, like yoga, gyrotonic is one of these movement modalities, Tai Chi, which I know you just recently did a segment on. Any of those are mindful movement modalities or mindful or mind-body exercise. Anytime you're creating more of that neuromuscular connection, you're improving coordination in the body, and that helps us to improve movement more reflexively as opposed to voluntarily, like lift and do this. So let's segue. I'm very excited when we start talking about neurology and neuroplasticity.
Yeah, we both nerd out.
Okay, so I've got, I'm sitting in my chair. This is just a standard height chair. And we're gonna do a little experiment where right now I have brought my feet to the floor. Okay. And I'm sitting right on that front edge of the chair, okay? So the feet being on the floor. And we can think here about, if our body being more like upright in space, how just take a moment to feel like how much effort it takes to hold our body up in space just in this positioning. Okay. And then we're going to move our body towards the back side of the chair. And I think what I might do, Holly, is I'm going to turn my chair to the side so you guys can kind of see what I'm doing on the side. Great. Yeah. Got my ghost chair so you can really see my body here. So I'm going to move toward the back side of my chair, right? Okay. And what I want you to see here is like my feet are kind of dangling here a little bit. And yes, the back of my chair is supporting my body here. But what ends up happening when our feet are no longer on the floor, we have to actually create more muscular effort to lift our body up in space. Because gravity is pushing on us regardless. We can't change that. Right. At this point in the world. Unless we go on our SpaceX flight, yeah. And we go, here is where gravity just like pushes on our body mechanically. So that's where I am. Kind of like this, yeah. Right, yeah. And so we can, here, nothing is supported. It takes muscular effort for me to hold my body up in space. It takes these erector spinae muscles. Like I have to use those to lift my body up. If I'm using these like all day, they get tired. And for sure. They're holding tension there because they are having to like hold your body up all day. So what we can do, so there's, what I like first and foremost with anything ergonomics, you either bring your feet to the floor or you bring the floor to your feet. And so this is what I mean by that. We can always scoop to the front edge of our chair and bring our feet just onto the floor so they're nice and connected. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, and then our feet, our weight is distributed. Our weight is distributed like down into our feet and into our sitting bones. So sitting bones are those two bones that you sit on. They feel, if you're on a hard chair, you can feel them. Or when you're on a bike, they can kind of get sore from your bike seat. Those are what we call sitting bones. Okay. So if we can imagine here now, we're going to take our sitting bones. They are shaped, like the bottom side of a rocking chair. Okay. So you can use your hands just to kind of think with your eyes, so you can kind of think and see. As we kind of rock our body, as you go forward, you can imagine that you're rocking to the front side of a rocking chair. Okay, and then as you can rock your body kind of backward and feel that you're rocking to the back side of your sitting bones, right? And so that's just taking our body and doing this or doing this. Right. There's also an option for us with our pelvis we can think here about our pelvis either doing this tucking, and you see like that automatically put me in this positioning here. Yeah. And I've moved to where the back side of my sitting bones have rocked in that direction. Or I could do like the polar opposite, which would be really moving here. And now like that's kind of too much too, okay? So we have those like two extreme places. And here it's like muscular effort to get up. So see if you can feel that where you rock to this positioning and you have like trying to get up, it takes effort. Can you feel that?
Yeah, for sure.
And then there's gonna be this kind of sweet spot where we can distribute our weight onto our sitting bones. It doesn't feel like it takes so much effort to lift our body up in space. So rocking it back and forth and finding that sweet spot is a way that you can create more ease in how the body is oriented in space and how gravity pushes us down. We have to use our postural muscles to lift up. But there's a big difference between this or this.
Right, for sure.
You can feel some of that difference and change there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So if if for some reason this is away feet to the floor, or we can bring the floor to our feet. And so I'll show you what I mean by that. And I have some yoga blocks here for me, and I love yoga blocks because they have three heights. There's like a low height, there's a medium height, and then there's like this tall height. Yoga blocks are an easy thing for you to use for this, but you can also just stack some books. I know you probably have a great, huge, selection of books from your medical training.
Indeed, they might be used in some kind of way. Yes.
And so we can use those books to our advantage. But yeah, you can just use books, or if you like, if you have yoga blocks or you want to use yoga blocks, they're not a very expensive purchase if you want to use that. So I'm going to move my body back into the chair. So remember, my feet were kind of like dangling or
right.
But I like to put it on the lowest height for just my personal length. And this chair works well for me, and I just have my blocks, and now I just have my feet on the blocks, and that's it. Yeah, so you just want to be able to feel that sense of weight distribution down into the floor. And that allows our leg muscles to be able to take some of the effort in holding our body upright. So it's not just our spine muscles holding us up all the time.
That looks like it's probably less stressful on your knees too, because I know a lot of folks have knee problems. And I can imagine kind of either dangling or putting so much effort, like going forward on your feet would be really hard on your knees. But there, I see you're at a perfect right angle. Knees aren't going, over too far over your feet there. Yeah, that looks like perfect support.
So easy and simple. So that's the first tip: is feet to the floor or floor to the feet.
Okay.
So here, what you've noticed here, I'm in a static chair. There are, chairs that have height adjustments, of course, and you can use that to your advantage. Lifting or lowering your chair so that your feet do connect to the floor. I will say that most chairs, even the ones that have a lift and lower mechanism, if you're on the lowest height still typically feels a little too high to get your feet really grounded.
Yeah.
I rarely see that. And then in addition to that, you just think about if you're that low to the floor, and your desk also has to change. And so oftentimes we're working on, I like to think about things from the foundation up.
Okay.
So just have that first, right? Feet to the floor, floor to the feet. So then we'll kind of move up the kinetic chain here. So we're going to go to where our back or our sacrum is. So you take your hand and you can feel Yeah, you can feel with your hand either like this or like this. Your lumbar curve, or that little like curve in the lower back, right? And then if you go a little bit lower, there's a bone there called the sacrum.
Okay.
And it's kind of shaped like this in our body. So if that part, we can think about that bony area needs to be like wedged into the back little like, this is what we call like the seat pan or the seat angle. It needs to be connected to the chair.
Okay.
Yeah, I know. So that's just one thing that most of us don't like put our body into the chair.
Yeah, no.
To help us be supported.
I always learn something in this show. See, I always learn.
Yes.
Never stop learning.
So here I want you to feel just the difference of most of the time the way that we put our body into the chair is more like this. Yeah.
I don't know anything about that.
I don't know anything. I'm not saying you specifically, but like other people. Anyway, so this is what we call sacral sitting, and you can see how like it's really the same position as I was like here,
right,
as far as my body angles are concerned. So we gotta put our pelvis, and which includes the sacrum, we gotta put that in the chair correctly before we get to lumbar support. So lumbar support is something that if I like to just use a towel is a super easy thing to use. You can change the thickness very easily, right? There are little like self-inflating things that you can purchase if that's something that you want to invest in, but you can literally just use a towel. It's not, and I've even in a pinch on like an airplane one time, I used a plastic like water bottle and used that. So you can get creative in what you use for support. But so this is just like a regular bath towel, and I don't know if you do this with your kids where you either like fold it hamburger style or hot dog style.
Oh, nice. No, I never used the phrasing, but I'm going to now.
Yes. Okay. So we fold the towel hot dog style, so long ways, and then I'm just gonna roll it up from there. Right?
Okay.
And so let's do that. So for me, this is like plenty of thickness for me. Just I've done this many times, so I
yes, you kind of know.
Yeah, but you can, however, obviously the more you roll, the thicker it gets, whatever. So you can play around with what works for your body. So that's going to be what I use today. About this much. Okay, so we put our sacrum, just like we talked about, back into the seat pan. And then what we need from there is to take our little like towel roll here. And we're going to we're going to put it in the lumbar curve. So it's above that sacrum that we just felt with our hand, and we're going to put it there. And so now when I go up to sit, can you see how like my shoulder blades are now just like resting onto
so you're still like lined. You're in alignment, like in a way that you would encourage me to do in Pilates class. That's awesome.
Exactly. So I have, you can play around with the thickness, and it's really important for you when you're first trying to kind of set up your environment for you to have the ability to play around with this example, like different height blocks or a towel roll that like right now, this thickness even feels like a little too much for me. Like I feel like I'm having an effort. Straighter. So then, so then I can just decrease the thickness a little bit, and now I'm here. So that's it. I want you to just notice here, like, I don't know if you can kind of see my seat back. Can you see the seat back here? So there's actually oftentimes the standard height, like the standard static chairs, the way the seat back is designed, it's not really helping to support you in an upright position, and that's okay. It doesn't have to, but this is how you allow it to. So it's okay that your upper body is not all the way back here, because you can see now, like, that's too much.
Yeah, that would be like stressful in a different way.
Yeah. So yes, important to feel. I'm going to play around with how to position my feet to the floor to the feet. I'm going to make sure that my sacrum, my tail, is really wedged back into that seat angle. I'm going to place something underneath my back, and it's basically between, like, here's my shoulder blades and here's more of like my sacrum. It's between those two places, or where we would have the top of the pelvis. And then it feels like if you go up really tall, and then I'm just letting my weight like hang out, and then gravity is working on my body. I'm just not having to use all of my muscles to help me stay upright.
I love that.
Yeah.
That just looks so much more supported than, what we normally do.
Yeah, definitely. So then I will, if you have a chair that has arms, you can always, this static chair height for me is like the arms are like a little bit low, perhaps. Mm-hmm. The point of having like armrest here is that the weight of your arm can also support some of your body weight, right?
Right.
So just like our feet being connected to the floor, our arms can be connected to something that also helps to support us upright. So some, the ergonomic chairs have this, they'll even go sometimes up, down, out, in. So all kinds of different options that are available, right? So, but so armrests are just another opportunity for us to distribute our body weight more evenly,
Okay.
So this is more of just our static sitting posture. It's not effortful. We're allowing the environment to support our body here. Then we can kind of get to our desk.
Yeah.
Keyboard, computer, where all of that should be kind of in space. You want to make sure that you play around with your desk height. Like if you have a variable desk, you can play around with how high or how low it is. Or we have these like keyboard trays that would come out and like allow for your body to be a little bit more like low. Those are all, things that you would need to like purchase. Or you can say, well, if you have a variable height chair, move your chair to a height where your desk, arms, and keyboard can kind of hang out more here as opposed to here. Okay, so
you definitely want the elbows lower than your hands, like when you're doing all the things.
Relatively so. If it's more so, the important piece is seeing where your shoulders are hanging out as a
that's where we don't like to keep your attention. Yeah.
Right? Exactly. And making sure that you're able to like rest things more so in this position. So if it's here, that's fine. If it's more here, that's fine. But what's interesting is to think about like, you see where my legs are in comparison to like my hands and like where my desk is. That's not usually like, we usually have the desk is, a much higher, and that's okay if we can't make those changes. We just need to be able to notice that that's not an ideal situation for my body, and that's okay. We need to make sure that if the environment can't support our body throughout the day, then we get to go to some counter poses. And counter poses are just doing the opposite of what we do most of the day.
Yeah, so I'm super excited about the counter poses because I've talked to you about how I'll try to vary my movement. I've noticed since you and I have kind of worked on my mind being more aware of my body that I tend to, I don't know if you guys can see, but I tend to do, like, I call it like the flamenco leg, and I have kind of a twisted pelvis. Dr. Daly helped me realize this, but I tend to like stand, and I can't even really show you guys, but I tend to stand with one leg up the other, I guess like a tree pose for yoga, except for I'm not doing yoga. I'm just like standing and talking to people. Yes. with my hips not aligned. So like definitely not a yoga pose. Just me trying to vary my positioning, but maybe not doing it evenly pose.
Yeah, and that's super common. I mean, I'm not going to pretend like my standing posture is ideal all of the time. It's not. Mm-hmm. We all have our comfortable resting posture, is what I call it. When you're not thinking, you're doing something. So, I'll demo some of like what mine are, which is like this, like hanging out in the chair. So our legs are, legs crossed, whether it's one side or the other. I mean, like this is the thing.
All right. Yeah. I never feel good after that, but then I do it. Like, I don't know what I'm thinking. Like, something falls. It's like, I always have something fall asleep and I'm like, what am I doing?
Yeah. I mean, I'm just gonna, like, these are not, I'm not, scolding anyone on these. Is like, I sit like this at home and I'm watching TV with my legs up, or, your feet and your like that, whatever. I mean, you're doing these, and that's fine. We don't need to change that. Like, we don't need to necessarily say, like, it's unrealistic to be in the perfect position all of the time. Like, that's just not realistic. And so instead of allowing that to accumulate over, a long period of time, sitting like that, and I'm talking about every day for your 8-hour workday.
Right. Like more and more right now, right? Because we're not, you might still be teleworking, and I didn't realize how much I got up and down when I was in the workplace, because I'm a social person. I just like to go see my people. And, I'm still teleworking, but I venture a guess that those who aren't are probably still not moving as much because you're physically distancing. So you don't get up to go talk to the person down the hall. You message them because you're both trying to stay safe. So that, it helps for trying to not spread a virus, but physically with our bodies, it's not so helpful. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes. And that is very realistic. That is what's happening. And so, instead of us trying to say, like, you got to do this all of the time, and if your attention is on that, your attention is not on your work,
Right.
And so it becomes something that, like, you can't do both. So instead, we can say, throughout the day, it's better to do like a little something throughout the day, as opposed to, you can at the end of the day do, a longer series of counter posing if you want, which is also very beneficial. But more importantly, and what I wanted to really like harp on today, is what you can do a little bit throughout the day, as opposed to like needing this big, hour-long routine at the end of the day is just not, always realistic either.
Right, for sure.
So changing our body position, one thing that we all tend to do is like crossing the legs. So realistically, I'm not all of a sudden going to stop crossing my legs. But what I want you to notice throughout your day, or throughout when you're sitting, if and when you do cross your legs, do you cross the same side? Is it the same? It's always for me right over left.
Right, my right loves to, like I said, do the flamingo or crossover. Like my right is always contracting. Yeah.
Yes, and so that's an important thing to notice. That's an asymmetry. So meaning that anytime that we are doing a unilateral or a one-sided activity, we create a muscle imbalance from like left to right sides. And that asymmetric muscle imbalance over, again, an accumulation over a long period of time, that's really the proverbial like straw that broke the camel's back. It's what we do most of the time that matters. Okay. And so, just notice, do you always do to one side? And when you catch yourself, don't worry about like, I'm just going to get into this. I'm
gonna get my
posture, and like I'm just going to do all the things in the middle and like and hold my body upright. Like that's not. I'll challenge you to instead just say, all right, I'm noticing that I do it this way most of the time. I'm just gonna, when I catch myself, I'm just gonna do the opposite. And just feel how awkward and strange it feels to do the opposite, okay?
Right?
And
like,
yeah, yeah. And this is what I mean by counter posing. Start to notice what you do most of the time, whether it's, for me, it's my, my right foot underneath my left side sitting bone. And I think we're opposite. We're like an opposite mirror image here, I'm noticing. So yeah, people would be like, do you know your left and right? That's a whole other issue of having to constantly teach to people in mirror image. We all, as movement instructors, we screw that up all the time. Anyway, so my point is, when you catch yourself doing one, check on feel the other for a few moments.
Yeah, I'm gonna do my flamingo on my other side. I don't even know if I can balance. I can do it without thinking on the one side, but the other one.
Yeah. Yeah, here's kind of one of my comfortable, or this, I think you might be talking about sometimes.
That's my favorite.
Yep. Or something, and if you just do the same exact thing on the other side, it'll at first feel like that is so weird. If you're right-handed, then you don't all of a sudden just start writing with your other hand. It feels weird, and you need to practice. It's going to feel strange because you never do it. And so instead of having the mindset of, I've always got to be in this, ideal centralized position, notice when you're doing something, just catch yourself and notice, and don't feel like you need to scold yourself over it. Don't feel like oh man, and punitive, and it feeling like, oh, I'm doing it again. Be gentle with yourself. And use it as, it's using it just as a learning process. Gently feel do the other thing. And just doing that will be helpful. You're avoiding the constant accumulation over time. This creates a lot of pelvis rotations and different, muscles of my back right side versus left side are working differently, and that creates some different muscle imbalances and things like that. So that's one. Then another thing that we can do is called active sitting. Okay. So active sitting is a way that we can use all of our postural muscles, building from the floor all the way up through the crown of our head, to use every postural muscle that helps us create more space in our body against gravity. Okay. So, would you like to go through all of the steps of that from the feet all the way up through the head?
Okay. So what do we do?
Let's go to the front of our chair. So feet to the floor.
Okay. So I'm standing. Can I do the same thing like an active standing?
Yep, you can do the same thing active standing. So I'll cue it from a chair, and then I'll also do it in standing. So you'll be able to have both.
Okay.
A lot of the same concepts really apply. Okay, so number one is the feet get to the floor. Our sitting bones are towards that front edge, just like we were doing earlier, and you can kind of find that difference between where you want to hang out on your pelvis, so it doesn't feel super effortful, just at first. Okay. So then from there, you can take your feet and just push your feet into the floor as if you were going up to standing, but we're not actually going to standing, right? So my feet just are pushing into the floor. So you notice just automatically I'm getting taller. And why is that? I'm using my muscles of my legs, and then I'm actually even getting into my pelvic floor, which just feels like taking the sitting bones and drawing the sitting bones together, okay? So you feel that feet to the floor and the sensation of drawing the sitting bones together. What it'll feel like on a hard chair is the difference between it feels really hard on your sitting bones, or if we're contracting these muscles, our sitting bones and our pelvises are actually now floating inside of the muscle that's working, which is a little bit of glutes that help to just lift us up, right? Okay, so that's the first, is creating this lift in this space. Then we're going to take our hands and put them down by the sides of our chair, and we're going to turn the palms to face forward like this.
Okay.
So if my feet are connecting into the floor, and then I take my arms and I rotate, I'm going to take the back side of my hands and I'm going to push that into the chair. Okay.
Okay.
So I push into the chair. And when we do that, it'll again feel like it's opening our chest a little bit. We're getting some of what we call the extensor chain, or the rotation up and open like this. We're getting those muscles activating, as opposed to these muscles, everything that would bring us up.
Right, yeah, what we often do when we're sitting in front of the computer. Yeah.
Exactly. Our postural muscles are the ones that lift us like up against gravity, creates space, like narrow and space, right?
Yep.
So it's the difference in feeling like wide versus feeling more narrow and upright and lifted.
Okay.
So I'm just going to do it one more time to the side so you can see it from there.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll do it with you in standing too after this piece. So our feet are on the floor. I'm pushing into the floor with my feet.
Okay.
And then I'm taking my hands and I'm turning my palms to face forward. And I'm pressing in this direction. So I'm pushing into my chair, and it'll help to create some of this openness. Yeah?
Yeah, it even just feels, even doing it standing, I just feel like, oh.
And then one more thing, now that we're facing the side and you can see my head alignment, we do call this like computer posturing, this forward head. And what you notice, there's more like length in the front, and there's a little bit more, compression in the back side of our neck.
Yeah.
So, feet to the floor, right? Arms are going to rotate and press into the chair. And we want to feel that the back of the neck is lengthening. So if you take the chin and sink the chin down just a smidge, and think about the back, so basically like where we would have like a ponytail, the crown of the head is reaching up toward the sky. So it's a down in the front, up in the back. And then it'll feel like you're creating more space and length.
Yeah, it really does.
It's possible that you'll feel some stretch with it. Maybe not. But the point is that, and take yourself to a mirror and watch. If you set your body up and you see the difference between, here's where I am versus feet, and then arms, and then we do head and chin, and then I let it all relax. You can see the difference in the length, the space, the height of your body. Yeah.
And that actually reminds me of something that we teach kids, is like the Superman pose. And that's actually something that to help with empowerment and kind of feeling more confident. And I could only imagine, and I think there's science behind this, like from a psychiatry standpoint, doing even that kind of posturing is going to help lift your mood. Like you're lifting your body, and I think you will also literally lift your mood, because it's hard to feel down in the dumps doing this.
It is.
When you're literally lifting yourself. You're lifting your skin up. Yeah.
Absolutely right. And that was, if we kind of rewind back to what we were talking about earlier, I mentioned that, the concept of posture, these like mood words, or the self-talk that comes along with the punitive piece, or like when you're sad or upset, you move into more of this fetal position,
right?
Because that's reflexive, right? And if we are, these like power poses, power postures, and it creates a little more self-worth, it's lifting the heart. It's creating like, I'm big, and I am here, I am present, and it is, the Superman. I love those. So let's kind of, it looks kind of like what you're describing. So I'm going to take you, can you see, I don't know if you can see my feet. That's fine. So I'm going to take my feet, my big toes are together, and my heels are like apart.
Okay.
Just like a little bit pigeon-toed, just a little bit. And then what I'm going to do is take my, first shift your body weight, heel side, toe side.
Okay.
So I'm just going to feel the difference between heel side, toe side. And you want to feel if your foot was like 4 points. So toe, inside, outside of the heel and of the toes.
Okay.
Play around with where those 4 points feel like there's an even weight distribution. So like, okay, I'm really on the toe side, I'm really on the heel side, on the outside, or like on the inside.
Okay.
And see if you can kind of distribute between those 4 points a bit more evenly. Most of us stand to the toe side of that's just where we hang out. Other ways that our body can hang out are like, like this. Sometimes we'll like hang out like this, all of these different things. But we can say, all right, first, let's, just like we did with our sitting bones, rock in, forward, backward, find the center line of your body. Then from there, I'm turning my face so you can see this. Right now, my knees are pointed, more inward because I've rotated I've taken my feet and I've done like that slight little pigeon toe, right?
Right.
So I want you to feel from way up here in the hip joints, okay, that we are spiraling or we're rotating our leg more in this direction. Yeah. Okay. And what it's going to feel like is it's taking my knees and moving them from pointing in this direction just to forward. Okay. Can you feel that it turns on some of your muscles of your legs when you're trying to do that? Yes. Okay. So then from here, and you may already feel this, that your tush, your glutes are kind of doing a little something to help out already. Okay. So we've got the feet, we've done our spiral or a little bit of rotation outward. And then I'm going to take you to your thumb goes in your belly button and your hand will go to your lower abs. So thumb and then here. And then our back hand is going to go back to that lumbar curve and that sacrum piece. Okay. So with this, I want you to feel the sensation of you're going to be going up in the front and down in the back. So it looks just like this.
Okay.
Okay. And you'll feel a shift to the heel side. Okay. This is too much.
Right.
Like this is too much, and now my back is flat. And also, so this is also not where we want to be. So you feel how, like, yes, it'll feel as if you're creating height again. Remember, that's what we want, is to create space and height. So it'll feel like your abs are turning on in the front a little bit, up and in, and that your glutes are drawing, your sit bones drawing together and then down toward the floor. And you'll feel this kind of automatically start to turn on a little. Arms go to the side, just like we did in the chair, spiral the arms. So this time we don't have resistance, so we can do what's the feeling of the fingertips opening really wide and reaching down towards the floor, okay? So it's here and it's reaching. And then the same thing with the head and neck that we did in the chair. The chin comes in and up, and then the back side lifts. I think so. And then it'll feel like you're really using a lot of effort. So remember, this is active standing. And then once you're here in that really tall position, if you relax, you'll notice that things get more like compressed. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So one more time, just from the floor all the way up.
Okay.
So we go just a little bit of a pigeon toe.
Okay.
Our heels underneath our sit bones, and I want you to feel rocking forward and back. Find your center point there, outside, inside. Find your center point there. Feel the thighs are going to rotate a bit. You'll feel the glutes drawing together and down. So down in the back, there's an up in the front. And you'll know you're doing it right when it feels like you're getting taller and you've got some muscles firing, as opposed to like too much of a tuck will feel like you're actually getting shorter, where you can look in the mirror too and see So we're there, and then we take those arms, spiral the arms. So more important to work on the spiraling in the body than it is. Remember we talked last time about like squeezing the shoulder blades together?
Right.
And that's it. So it's just that spiraling of the arms, and then the chin is going to come in and lengthen the back of the neck. I'm reaching down towards the floor. And sometimes when I do this, like today, I'm feeling like there's a little bit of a stretch in my neck and shoulder when I'm doing that active standing. And so again, lots of muscular effort. That's why we call it active. And then you kind of rest. Okay? So is this how you stand all of the time? Absolutely not. That's ridiculous. Is that how you sit all of the time? No, that's ridiculous too. But what we can do is when you're feeling some sense of tension, activate the muscles in that sequence that we just learned to be able to create some space and decompression and lift. You can do it in sitting. I like to tell people, like, set an alarm once an hour and do this. How long do you have to do it? I don't like to count or like time or anything.
Right.
Do it, find it, breaths, okay? You breathe 3 times, relax, okay? So instead of doing it like, okay, I'm holding it for so many seconds, no, you're in the position, then you breathe, and then you relax, and that's it.
And there's a little mini mindfulness exercise while you're doing it. It's like win-win-win.
Exactly.
Multitasking in a good body-centric way, which I love. That's so wonderful.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think that, that gives us a ton of, lots of things to think about already. And you don't necessarily need to buy a bunch of things to be able to make some small changes. So just to like recap, we did bring your feet to the floor or the floor to the feet.
Right.
Then we talked about how to allow, position your body so that the chair supports you, right? So you make sure that your sacrum, your tail is it wedged in there, and then use that roll to help go up and over and let it naturally your body. Mm-hmm. Exactly. So, excuse me, and then you have some counter poses. So notice when you're doing something, pause. Change to the opposite. Just feel the difference in your body. And that's a learning experience. Over time, you'll notice like, ooh, it's not all that different. And that's a good thing. That's a positive reinforcement for our brain. Okay. And then we have active sitting, right? And then active standing. So we've got all of that piece.
And it's funny because you use the term active, but at the same time, traditionally when we think active, we think, oh, we're going to tense everything up and I got to, squeeze my butt and like put my shoulders back and all the things that we're talking about not actually doing. And I can't help but think of when you're doing these poses, like how many things that's going to help. Folks who are complaining of headaches, a lot of times those headaches are stress headaches, which is really tension back here. And that simple standing pose or sitting and creating that space, that's going to help those headaches. Yes. Same with, the tension sometimes we feel in our stomach when we're feeling anxiety, working on being more present with our bodies and like where we are in space and doing that active sitting or standing, whatever feels right in the moment. That's going to also help with that. Like there's so many ways that this is going to help, not just what you would think it would help, right? Like it's going to help if you're having a bad day, your boss just fussed at you, your kid just, yelled at you because you forgot to make them lunch, whatever. Doing some of these active standing, active sitting also is going to help lift your mood because you're lifting your body, you're literally lifting up. Amazing. As usual, not surprising because you're a goddess. So Dr. Daly, tell me how folks can find you and find out more information about all the wonderful work you're doing.
Sure. So you can visit my website. It's optimalkinetics.com. And I think, yes, great. And on there'll be a pop-up for you to subscribe to our newsletter, which I'll be updating any workshops, Everything will be virtual for a little while, but if I get enough interest in people wanting to learn more about these different posture, ergonomics, or things like that, I always take requests, and if many people want, then we do workshops for those types of things. And then I'm also going to be doing a monthly newsletter that will be some little tips and tricks like we did today. So,
awesome.
Yeah. So we'll do that. Yes. Thank you so much for putting this together. Holly, appreciate you asking me to be joining you today.
Yeah. So folks can go to my website to see other episodes. Please subscribe if you're on YouTube, so we can get our show out to more folks. Send some hearts, some #live if you're watching this later on Facebook. And you can go to my website, like I said, to see other episodes. I also have a freebie there that you can get for yourself and get onto my mailing list. And thanks to everybody for tuning in. And thank you so much, Allison. I appreciate it. Absolutely. All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.